Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin. I'm joined as always by Scott. And this week, Scott, we have pretty much everything that we talked about last week to go over. Almost nothing.
So maybe just go back and listen to that episode and we'll call it even, right? We're done.
But no, real talk. There are a couple of things that I want to talk about. And almost none of them are like news. Like one of them has to do with Turbo Boost and like how that is impacting the community. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I saw kind of secondhand people giving their thoughts about this through Yoda's stream last night, and I thought it was interesting.
Okay.
So I kind of want to circle back on that. I do want to talk about the meta a little bit because we did get another like meta high key analysis that was posted to Wowhead again today. And it's somewhat interesting. And then we can circle back on where we left off last week as far as like the rate at which people are blasting through this season.
Sure.
Because I think you have a good point, but I want to dissect that a little bit more.
Yeah.
If time permits, Legion Remix, I guess, maybe.
I don't even know what to say about it. I haven't done any of it. It's coming out though. I think that the one piece of news we do have is it is official now that October 7th will be the launch date for 11.25, which will also be the launch date for Legion Remix and the Turbo Boost. All of that is happening on the same day, which is Tuesday, October 7th, which is, I believe, 3 weeks from now. Yeah, so we basically have this week, next week, and the week after for pre-Turbo Boost Mythic Plus prog. So if you wanted to say, like, I got 3K before the Turbo Boost, you've got 3 weeks to do it. And we also have 3 Great Vaults left before everything goes into overdrive.
Yeah, and Crest get uncapped and shit.
Well, okay. The announcement today that mentioned Turbo Boost was coming on October 7th said nothing about the Crest cap.
That is true. It also, we kind of assumed this was going to be the case, but they also are pushing Dinar's back past the beginning of Turbo Boost.
Yeah. So several things are happening during Turbo Boost, just to remind everyone. All hero track and myth track items will get 2 additional tracks. They will go up by 2 additional sets of item levels. That is coming day 1. So the first day of the patch, October 7th, you will log on and your hero track items will, if they're automatic, if they're all advanced, they will say 6 of 8. Same with your myth track items. You will also get be able to purchase the crafted thing that allows you to level up your crafted item by that same number of levels. That will come on the 7th. But basically everything else Turbo Boost related is coming at a quote unquote later date. They haven't said when. That includes Dinars. That includes the increased drop rate of Warbound gear from both the raid and from Mythic Plus. And it includes something new they're doing in Turbo Boost this season, which is catalyst charges can drop from dungeons. And I believe raid as well. So you can get like extra catalyst charges beyond the one you're getting every other week, starting sometime after Turbo Boost. That's all that they've said. So they pushed off Dinar, but they also have not released any additional information on how Dinar are going to work during this Turbo Boost. They've just said you will get maximum of 3, just like last time, and they've said nothing else. So is it still you're locked mythic gear only if you've killed mythic bosses? We don't know. We don't know. We also don't know when it's coming. We don't know any of that stuff. So does that include the crest cap as well? I don't know. It would feel a little bit weird.
Flight stones.
So the Flightstone trading is not coming on the 7th. They did specifically say that will come at the later date with everything else. So maybe that's the crest cap also. Maybe we can lump those 2 things together and make the assumption that the crest cap will not be removed until whenever this post-October date is. I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit last week where it did feel a bit soon to be letting the crest cap go. Like we talked about that October 7th date, and it wasn't official when we talked about it, but we were like, wow, that seems like really soon. Cause I think this week we're at 540 crests.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
And so 3 weeks from now, we would be at another 2,700 more, which is still under what the normal amount when they do crest cap is, which is, I think, 990 has been, at least this expansion, the historic. This is about in the season when we're going to unlock the cap is when you've been able to accrue up to just under 1,000. So I get it makes sense maybe that's why they're pushing the stuff in now, but they're holding off on those part of the changes until when that part happens in the season typically, which is a little weird, but it's going to be a little weird to suddenly get all these new upgrades, potential upgrades, but then be kind of handcuffed by crest acquisition still. That's going to feel a little weird.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this is, one, if they're putting it off until we hit that normal breakpoint, just under 1,000, I mean, we're looking at another 2, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, which maybe beginning of November.
Which seems a little odd that they wouldn't just then delay this 2 weeks.
I mean, maybe the numbers, like, I mean, that's a good point. Like, they've attached these two things together, Legion Remix and Turbo Boost. At some point, they decided this is going to be the 11.2.5 content. We're going to release them at the exact same time. And the thing about Legion Remix is because it is very heavily time gated, it kind of has this very scheduled, deliberate rollout to where maybe they were just like, if we're going to meet our goals for how we want to release this stuff and when we want it to be wrapped up and done, we have to release it now. And so they're like, okay, so then we have to release Turbo Boost, but we're going to have to delay some of the Turbo Boost stuff. It's like, well, why did you then? I mean, you made the choice to include both of these two things in the same content patch, right? There's an opportunity maybe to just divorce these two things from each other and have Legion Remix and Turbo Boost differently. I mean, from the moment this was announced, I was kind of like, I really want to do Legion Remix, but like, I'm also going to feel pressure to keep advancing my guy in Turbo Boost. And I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like having to be ripped between these two things. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about them time gating Legion Remix as much as they are, but maybe it's actually ultimately going to be to my advantage because I'm going to feel pulled between these two things so strongly that I'm glad I'm kind of capped on what I can do in Remix. I don't know.
So what if we think about it this way, Scott? The first time that they did this, like everything came at once and it came fairly late into the season. I mean, about the halfway point, but that was still, longer than it currently is.
Yeah.
With it coming out this time. I guess I fail to understand why, like, you're essentially telling us, okay, we're fine with you getting extra item level. We're fine with you getting more power, but we're still going to lock that behind. So like the messaging to me doesn't feel consistent. Like It feels like they're kind of doing something, but still like half-assing it. It almost feels like I feel the same way I felt about Dinar's last season about kind of rolling this out in a staggered approach. Like, it feels off for no reason other than it just like they want it to be 2-3 weeks long or whatever it's going to end up being, like, I don't know. It feels very off to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, when we first heard about Turbo Boost and then heard that it was going to very possibly become a thing that they do every season, I think one of the questions we asked was like, well, what's the difference between doing this and then just maybe having 8 tracks for hero and mythic tier gear from the start of the season, right? And like, if this is going to still exist under a crest cap system, which it seems like, at least for the first few weeks of it is, that's essentially the same thing, right? Because you're not going to be able to upgrade all your gear. Like, even if we go into Turbo Boost with every single piece upgraded to its maximum, and we've kind of banked a few gilded crests, which I honestly don't even know if I'm going to be able to do, frankly. Like, I'm still using every single gilded crest I earn right now.
Mhm.
and still kind of having to carefully plan and make decisions on should I hold off on upgrading this hero track item and save it when I get a myth track item in my vault, because I'm going to need the 75 for that, and then every 2 weeks I'm going to need the 60 for the crafted item. Like, there's still choices being made here and decisions being made there, and frankly, like, if we don't unlock the cap on the 7th, I don't know for sure if I'm going to have enough crests at that point to even invest in any of these new tracks. And so it's just like, again, I think ultimately at the end of the day, I was a fan of Turbo Boost last season as like kind of a jolt in your arm mid-season to kind of bring fun back and bring advancement back. But like, it seemed like the timing of it was intended to be, we're hitting this at about the time when you've run out of stuff to spend your crests on. You're not doing any more advancement. The only thing you have to play the game for at this point is score. And I don't know if it's just me. I don't feel like I'm there yet. And maybe I will in 3 weeks. We're still almost a month out from this. So maybe 3 weeks from now, I'll be like, yeah, I'm out of stuff to upgrade. I really need this. But right this very minute, I don't feel like I'm there yet. And that feels, the timing of it feels a little bit weird then.
Yeah, so where I'm sitting on this and how I'm kind of thinking about it is on my character I've been playing from the very beginning. Even if I got a myth item out of every vault for the next 3 vaults, and I had a crafted item 2 weeks from now, like, I'm still spending all of my crests upgrading all of those things currently. So I 100% think that what you're saying is correct. Like, 3 pieces of myth loot plus 1 more crafted item for somebody who isn't doing the mythic raid is not going to fill out your gear. Like, you're still going to have pieces that you need to get myth track and upgrade.
Mhm.
So you're not going to be in the situation where it's like, I have nothing left to spend my shit on. I mean, you could be like, if you get insanely unlucky, right? And you get no more myth pieces and you have nothing to, like, you can be in that situation. But I don't think that the majority of the player base is in a state in which, if they're getting 3 myth track vaults every week, we are going to be seeing them not take anything for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's highly unlikely.
Can I be super pessimistic and shitty here? It almost seems like what they're doing with this, and again, we are running with the supposition that the crest cap will not be removed upon the launch of Turbo Boost. We don't know this for sure. They have not said anything definitively, but it seems like if they were planning on doing that on the 7th, they would have probably said it already. So let's continue to run with that idea. If that's true, it seems like they're time gating Turbo Boost. And I know time gating is like a word like we don't like, but like, you could make an argument. One of the things that they did with Turbo Boost the first time is they gave a shot in the arm of the game, right? Like, you can look at the number of Mythic Plus runs across the season, and then you can look the week Turbo Boost came out, and it shot up like crazy. And why did it shoot up like crazy? Because simultaneously you had all these new upgrades you needed to make, and you weren't capped on crests, so you could just run 100 fucking dungeons that week if you wanted to, get every single gilded crest you need and upgrade every single piece of gear you needed, and then you were quote unquote done with Turbo Boost in a week.
Mm-hmm.
If they introduce Turbo Boost and do not upgrade the crest cap, they are essentially spreading that influx of dungeon runs out over a longer period of time, in essence time gating it.
So it makes me wonder, like, we've unlocked crest caps in the past, right?
Yeah.
So, like, we know that just doing that isn't going to be enough to bring people back.
Correct.
So by not having those two things married, we're kind of taking the wind out of the sails of Turbo Boost. I know that's exactly what you were just saying, but like, at the grand scheme of things, like, that is what this would do, and I just can't see a world in where that's the right call.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like that's missing the whole point of Turbo Boost.
It is an attempt. And again, we're attaching a lot of assumptions to this. Assumptions both of how it's going to work and assumptions on what the people that designed it this way are thinking. But let's continue to operate in this world of assumptions. It rather than take the wind out of the sails, it essentially, in their minds, is trying to take a hurricane force wind and stretch it to be a heavy breeze that goes over the course of several weeks instead of just a big storm that hits at one point and then goes away.
But we have historical data showing that just unlocking the crest cap isn't going to bring people back.
No, correct. But if Turbo Boost does, it like the data supports that it does. But what if you want to participate in Turbo Boost and you did exactly what I did last season, which is crest cap and Turbo Boost both dropped at the same time, and so we played a shit ton of dungeons that first week. Did we play as many dungeons the second week? No, we didn't. The third week? No, we didn't. Instead of that, you leave crest cap in, you introduce Turbo Boost. I have to, like, maybe I wouldn't have capped the first week of Turbo Boost. Maybe I would have reached a point where I was kind of out of stuff to upgrade. Now I got to cap again. Now I got to cap again. Now I got to cap again. I got to cap again. I got to cap again. And so it stretches. What it does is, instead of like making this gear, like, you slowly gear over time and then you kind of plateau and then Turbo Boost shoots it up in the air, right? It just instead takes that plateau and then just makes it like just another small slope, right? And so it is stretching that jump out a little bit further in their mind, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
think
get the point. I just think that it feels worse.
No,
right?
I agree. It takes away the fun of it. It takes away the excitement of it. Like, I remember the week before Turbo Boost, like, calculating in my head, this is how many crests I'm going to need. This is how many dungeons I'm going to have to run this week. What am I going to focus on first? It makes sense to upgrade all my myth stuff first, then do my crafted stuff, then finally do my hero. And like, it was a lot of fun, like, planning that and like going and like gearing is fun. That's one of the reasons we play the game, right? It's fun to go through this, and it is kind of kneecapping that and making it less of an event and more of a we've just made you do more of what you were already doing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like it, especially considering Legion Remix launches at the same time, which is in and of itself like a subscription retention model. Like, that it is designed to get everyone excited about World of Warcraft again and continue to play until the expansion hits. So do we need both of those things at the same time? I guess they would perhaps argue that the target audience for those two things are perhaps different. I don't know. I don't love it either.
So I want to kind of transition over to what I heard in Yoda's stream yesterday, because it echoes something that you and I had brought up when they did this announcement for season 3, saying, like, from the beginning of season 3 that Turbo Boost was going to be happening.
Yeah.
And you and I made a statement that we felt like, in doing this and knowing going into the season that this was going to happen, that people would care less until Turbo Boost hit. And then when Turbo Boost hit, now we're running a bunch of keys. Now we're pushing. Now we're trying to get title. And that was echoed by a couple of people in Yoda's stream yesterday. And I get, like, from the highest of high end players, like, that is 100% probably where you feel, right? Like, you are going to be doing the highest of high keys. So why slam your face against something now when you could push back what you're slamming your face against in a month or two?
Yeah.
Like, but for the general population, I almost feel like this is kind of having the same impact if you're doing anywhere in the, like, I don't know, plus 12 or higher range, because you and I have felt this a little bit where it's like, okay, well, do we just want to get 3K and then sit and wait until Turbo Boost and then like actually push, or do we want to push before? And we've went back and forth, and I think we've kind of decided, like, we're just going to play the game, and whatever we get done before Turbo Boost, great, and then Turbo Boost happens and we get a little bit of a stimulant and we do a little bit more. But I just struggle to know if they, like, this is a good idea knowing that it's going to be happening every time, or if, like, the reason it was a good idea last season is because it was like a boom, okay, here in a couple weeks this is happening, here you go.
Yeah. I listen to some other content creators, some high-end content creators talk about the same thing, and they kind of dismissed the idea of it kills motivation as silly, because they were just like, what's wrong with you? Just play the game. Like, why do you play this game? Do you play this game because it's fun, or do you play this game to get gear? And like, I get that sentiment, because certainly, you and I are still playing the game. We're not playing the game. But I do think there is this real sentiment amongst people, especially people that do not play this game full time, all hours of the day, that do not have the highest level of confidence in their abilities, that if you tell them, stretch yourself into this harder and harder difficulty, but tomorrow it's going to be easier than it is today. And maybe you're not too confident in your ability. Maybe you're not sure that you can do a 12. Maybe you're not sure you can do a 14, a 15, whatever. Maybe even a 10, right? Let's go lower than that. And then I tell you that in 2 weeks, all that stuff's going to get easier for you. I think it is a very understandable and human reaction to just go, maybe I'll wait 2 weeks. And yeah, establishing this as this is what we do in seasons from now on. Let's say this turbo boost thing is been successful enough of an experiment that this is just what they're going to do. Midpoint in the season, they're going to up everyone by 6 item levels. And they're going to do all this stuff. If I am a casual player looking at that, it does. I think it is completely fair for that player to just go like, I'm going to dabble, I'm going to have fun. But if I really want to push myself to my limit, it doesn't make sense to do that until the midpoint of the season. And that does feel a little bit weird. I do think that, like, and I understand the sentiment of like, just play the game because you like playing the game. Yes, of course, everyone does that. But like, I don't know. Everyone has different levels of anxiety and levels of challenge that they want to be challenged. And just like, I like, we are 3 weeks out from it right now. And I am sitting here going, how hard do I want to go? Like, I'm really close to 3K. I'm like 2 dungeons away from it. And I'm like, I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to do it. Because I need to get my vault anyway. And I enjoy playing the game. But like, once I get 3K, once I hit that threshold, I think it's a serious conversation I need to have with myself of like, is it worth the time and effort to bang my head against 14s and 15s for 2 weeks? Or should I just wait and then do that same thing and maybe have a little bit of an easier time with it and maybe not feel as frustrated, not feel as if my very limited time has been wasted? Yeah, I just think that's a fair calculus. And I don't know ultimately if this, like you said, if this is a good model going forward.
Mm-hmm. It feels very much reminiscent of another thing that they did that they then decided that they were going to bring back, and it now no longer exists. But with Faded, like the first time Faded was announced, like that was huge. Everybody was excited. They had fun. They got the things that they wanted, and then they did it again for the next expansion.
Yeah, and it was
they
like,
said we're gonna have a Faded season at the end.
Yeah,
and nobody fucking cared.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like, and I think this is also a very interesting thing, and ultimately how Legion Remix is going to work, right? Because I think it's a similar thing. They surprised you with this mop remix, and it was this new game mode and this power aggregation that had never been seen in the game before, and it was exciting and fresh and new, and it was a big hit, and people really liked it. And now, okay, that was successful. We're going to do it again, and people aren't as hot on it this time.
And around. Plunderstorm, it just keeps happening.
Yeah.
The first round of Plunderstorm, I would argue, was way more people interacted with it for longer than people who did Plunderstorm the second time around.
Yeah. And this, by the way, is kind of a constant worry of mine with this game and all games like this in general, that you get into, there's so much work that goes into making these expansions and making them in insufficient time and doing everything that needs to be done there, that you get into this very understandable structural habit of, we have a list of everything that is new expansion, and we just have to hit those beats. 8 new dungeons, new raid. It's a problem that happens in World of Warcraft. It's a problem that happens in Final Fantasy 14. It's a problem that happens in every type of these games, where it is much quicker and easier to establish what the structure of the thing is and keep that structure the same, and then just tinker with the things inside the structure, than to kind of completely rebuild the wheel every single expansion. I totally understand that sentiment, but also that is what makes the game like exciting and fresh feeling and new and all these things. And I do worry if we're getting into that rut. Well, like Remix was a really fun, great, fresh, new idea, and I wonder if now every expansion, instead of doing a faded season, we're just going to do a expansion remix. How long until that gets stale? It could be the second iteration of it. It could be, and same with this turbo boost. Like, I really am very curious to see what the final numbers look like. If Turbo Boost was a very exciting new thing the first time around, it brought a lot of people back to the game. It made people focus on alts more, just all these things. And I wonder if the numbers this time around are going to reflect that same thing. I kind of think probably not, but I don't know.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, you and I have pretty much been on the same mentality on Turbo Boost, and what it did for the game last season, and what we thought about it going into season 3, knowing that it was going to be happening. Like, we've shared these thoughts before. I just thought it was interesting hearing them from another, like a third party, and somebody who plays this game significantly different than I do. It sounds like some of the people who Yodo was playing with yesterday, like, aren't even playing the game and have no intention of playing the game until Turbo Boost releases. Like, that to me is crazy to think of, because like you said, play the game if you like the game, whatever. But people who are doing this, all day, every day, some of them don't necessarily play because they enjoy the game. Some of them play because they enjoy the competitiveness of saying, I am on the top 100 or whatever, like, I'm in Hall of Fame, or
Yeah.
I have this title that is exclusive. Like, not everybody plays because they love World of Warcraft. Some people play because they are good at World of Warcraft and they can get achievements that other people cannot.
Especially at that top end, right? Where like success and failure in a 19 or a 20 right now is so, the margin of success is so thin. You're on a razor's edge the entire time. One screw up, one delay, like one miscommunication, and the key's dead. Like, let's say in a perfect world, you've got to run the key 20 times in order to be able to successfully time it once, right? And then you tell that same person, in 2 weeks, you're only going to have to run that key 15 times in order to be able to get that timing once. Like, are you the type of person that's going to be okay smashing your head against the thing with a 5% success rate when 2 weeks from now there's an 8% success rate or a 10% success rate? I mean, I guess you could make the argument that the same thing exists today in Raid, that all the people doing Raid right now essentially know that every 3 weeks there's going to be a 3% damage increase, and yet they are still progging the Raid. However, the difference between Raid and Mythic Plus, I think, is that your guild ranking in Raid matters. And that is a point in time measurement. It is when you clear the final boss. Whereas your Mythic Plus ranking is an open thing that is not locked until the very end of the season. So if you have only a 5% success rate in Raid and you could have an 8% success rate next week, you're still maybe okay rolling the dice on that 5% success rate, because next week you might not get into the top 100, or you might not.
Yep.
There is incentive there in the Raid environment to keep pushing and to keep grinding through the system, even if it's going to get easier week over week, time over time. And yeah, that same thing does not exist at all in Mythic Plus. It's just not the way the system works. And I'm not even saying that should be the way the system works. It's just to your point, it's interesting how something like this can really affect motivation in one place way different than in another.
Yeah, 100%. I'm interested to see what happens going into midnight and how we're going to handle Turbo Boost going forward. Like, I think that the dichotomy between how it is happening in season 2 versus how it is happening in season 3 is really going to drive the decisions going forward on how they handle this. Just like with Faded. I mean, they did Faded, success. They did Faded again, failure, no Faded.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's going to make or break it, whether we see it continue or not.
As much as I was a fan of it in season 2, I'm kind of at the point right now where I could just be okay with it going away. And maybe we get rid of the item level increase across the board, but we leave the dinar system as a thing that happens mid-season as a way, as what it truly was meant to be, which is a catch-up mechanic. It's like, you haven't got that trinket you need yet. You haven't got those boots you need yet. It's midway through the season. We're going to provide you a method of getting those in a more controlled way. Maybe that's the answer. And maybe this like flat, just buff to your item level. While I understand it incentivizes people to keep playing the game because the gear grind is what keeps people in the seasons. Maybe I just want to see it go. I think that's where I'm leaning, honestly.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll be interested to see what happens going into midnight. I don't really have a ton else to say on Turbo Boost. I wanted to touch on it because you and I have made these comments. We made them the second that we found out that this was a thing that was going to happen in season 4. And now it's like coming to fruition and people are like, it's really impacting them playing. So it's worth taking a retrospective look at it and, maybe doing this again here in a couple months after we've experienced Turbo Boost in its entirety.
Yeah.
We've gotten everything that Blizzard says that they're going to do because, and albeit I will 100% say, like, the Turbo Boost that happened last season is not the Turbo Boost that's happening this season. They're doing things differently. They're adding catalyst charges. Like, it very well could just be what we're saying right now. Doesn't matter. We receive it super well here in a few weeks. And, we look back on this saying, how wrong were we?
I think the catalyst charge of it is really cool, actually. I like collecting like the whole set of my sets. Just for aesthetic purposes, and even depending on how your gear acquisition goes, you might be blowing catalyst charges pretty regularly to the point where even midway through the season, you really can't afford to spend those charges on belt, boots, bracers, that kind of stuff. And get the possibility of getting extra charges, I think, is really cool. So I think that's a positive thing to add to it. I also think just increased drop rate of warband stuff is a positive thing to add from it. That it helping, like, acknowledging that as the season goes on, you tend to shift more towards alts and away from your mains, and kind of helping that process along is good. But yeah, maybe ultimately it's just the item level increase that needs to go. I don't know. We'll see. I am very glad to hear that other people were echoing the sentiment that we had, because I definitely was listening to a podcast of some other creators, and they just kind of completely dismissed that thing we talked about as silly and ridiculous. And I was like, I just don't feel that it is. Yeah.
I completely agree. Scott, Turbo Boost aside, I don't think that that's going to change what the current meta is, and meta being Mythic Plus meta. At this point, like, Scott and I don't Mythic Raid, so we're not even going to talk about like Mythic Raid meta, but Mythic Plus meta, looking at the data that we got today, I believe there are 4 classes that are like, they're just, those are the meta classes. And I feel like on one hand, I'm like, okay, so we're in a situation to where we don't just have a meta comp and everybody's running it, because there's a 5th class, like there is a 5th spot in a dungeon group, and that one is a little bit more up for debate. But on the other hand, the amount of people who are playing the 4 classes that are in the top keys right now seems to be growing season over season over season. And it just really starts to solidify, like, pretty much nobody takes anything else other than that, even in lower keys where it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know how many times you and I have said, if you're doing 12s, if you're doing 10s, if you're doing 7s, it doesn't fucking matter what you play. You can play AUG, which is far and away, I think, the worst spec in the game right now as far as DPS is concerned. It just doesn't matter. Like, you'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the meta is always going to exist, and it's also always going to be silly. I will say the cool thing, like I'm looking at the top leaderboard right now, it seems like at least from a tank and healer perspective, we've kind of got two of each.
Mm-hmm.
That on the tank perspective, it's a lot of warriors and a lot of paladins, and maybe a little bit of brewmaster. And on the healer perspective, it's shaman, resto druid. It's definitely more shamans than resto druid, but it's cool. It's cool seeing not like all just one color in each thing.
Yeah. I think that when we look at tanks, and I kind of like, I don't remember where I heard this. This also might have been in Yoda's stream yesterday. But when we look at like the breakdown of what is considered like a meta spec right now, like you said, we have paladins who are doing super high keys. We have demon hunters who are doing super high keys. Not so much anymore. And then we have warriors. And then you have like one off like brewmasters. You have one off like Squish is doing things on his druid still. And so you get into a point where it's like, okay, boil it all down. What do we see the most of? We see paladins, we see warriors, right? Okay. Ultimately, what one, if you're swapping to it as a flavor of the month reroller, is one that you can play better? Well, warrior, because if you don't know what you're doing on paladin, you're on the floor. And the same goes for healing, right? Like shaman is just easier to play than resto druid.
Especially like no disrespect to my shaman players out there, especially the current build shaman that everyone is playing. The Farseer shaman build is ridiculous. It is a 2-button spec. You you cast healing surge and you cast oh my gosh, what is the other ability? I don't.
He doesn't even know.
Just healing surge. That's it. That's how I do. No, what is the freaking Riptide? Riptide. There we go. I don't play as much shaman as you. You cast Riptide and you cast healing surge. That's it. You cast the abilities that make your ancestors come out. Then you healing surge people, and then you cloudburst totem. And so your cloudburst absorbs a shit ton of healing from all those surges you're casting on individual characters, and then it explodes and heals everyone. And that's the spec. You don't press chain heal anymore. You don't press any. Shaman has so many buttons that they can press, and it's 2 buttons. It's 2-button healer now. It's still very fun to play, so I get it. But yeah, that's part of the reason why it's so popular, is that it's just very easy to play and very powerful.
And this goes further into DPS as well. Like, if you look at the top DPS, you have Death Knight, you have Mage, and like Hunter is up there. Warrior's kind of up there. Warlock is up there. And so you boil it down and you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to play melee, my options are like Warrior, Rogue, Death Knight. Okay, Death Knight, because there's literally nothing tankier in the game than a Death Knight. So that one's locked. And then you look, and Mage is like super overperforming as far as like priority damage goes and everything like that. But it's the hardest class in the game to play. And so less people are playing it, despite it probably being the best thing to play. And more people are playing like Hunters or Warlocks. And so it's super interesting how the meta gets defined by the best players. And so even the things that are extremely hard to play are played very regularly. But then you boil that down and people are like, okay, well, here's the meta comp. These are the only things I'm inviting. And you get into like a 12 and you invite an arcane mage that has no fucking clue what they're doing. And they do tank damage and die to everything, right? Like, it's just this weird, I don't know how to feel, because a meta is always going to exist in a world at which we can share information. It has been this way in gaming for decades now at this point. But it doesn't matter to 99% of the player base what the
99
meta is.
99.9, like literally the only people that it matters to is if you're going for title. And like there are plenty of people out there that prove that you can get title no matter what. Like Megaset has gotten title on Mistweaver Monk every season that title has been a thing, and that includes seasons where Mistweaver was dog shit, like awful, like the worst healer. She's still gotten title on it. So yeah, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But like there is always, especially in this game, I think gaming in general, but in this game, of like being the most efficient, doing it the most bestest way. And so you're always going to look at what the people above you are doing and you're going to copy it, and that's going to trickle down and there's no stopping it. It's always silly. It's why when I'm putting a group together, I try my hardest to just not care about that kind of thing. I'm looking at gear, I'm looking at score, I'm looking at experience. I don't care. I need a lust. I don't care what you are. If the best person that signs up that has a lust for my 12 is good, I don't need an arcane mage. But I understand it. I do. I will say, like, anecdotally, the game feels pretty well balanced right now. I don't know if that's actually a true statement, but that's the way it feels to me. Running keys with people of very different specs and classes and skill level, like it feels like there's not a particular thing that's just absolute dog shit. So I mean, good job, Blizzard. You're kind of nailing the balance thing again.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I did want to kind of ask you about, as far as like when it comes to a meta, is a meta defined by the comp who clears the most of the highest keys, or is it defined by what the majority of the player base is playing? Like what do you think defines a meta?
I mean, that's kind of a chicken and egg situation, right? Where it's like it's almost this like snake eating its own tail thing, where the meta is going to originally be defined by what people are seeing the best players play, and therefore they're going to play those classes. So now other people are going to start to see the majority of people are playing Resto Shaman, so that I'm going to play Resto Shaman. So then someone else is going to see, well, oh, that, and it just kind of snowballs in that regard. Like this is why when people talk about the meta crystallizing and forming and crystallizing over the first few weeks of an expansion, what they're not referring to is people like crunching the numbers and finding out which class is the best. What they're referring to is actually this kind of snowball effect of just the more people play something, the more popular it is, the more well received it is, type of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Like, how many people actually like theory craft in this game anymore? Like,
yeah, very little.
A very small amount of people actually like put in the time to crunch the numbers and actually report what is the best and for what reason. The majority of people, the vast majority of people, even frankly some of the best players of this game in the world, are relying on other people to do that and going from there. And so I think the meta is always going to be perception based and vibes based more than it is actual numbers based. There is, of course, always numbers behind it, right? Because I do think the people at the top are actually making intelligent decisions on, like, this is something that's, by the way, completely lost. That's like with the physical comp last season that became so popular. Is it like, was Resto Shaman the best healer last season? No, it just worked the best with a physical comp. So like you saw Resto Shaman and Fizz comp, and that is the type of thing that is lost when people are just copying and pasting and going off of popularity with meta. Is that at the top end, there is usually always a very intelligent decision for whatever choice. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the class or spec by itself in isolation, and more to do with how it interacts with the other classes that are going to be in their particular comp. Like, this is something that happens in MDI all the time, right? Like, an MDI comp is built to do a very specific thing, and it is not always the thing of just casually playing the game. And yet people look at that and go, we need that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a world in which, like, for example, I don't think Boomkin was necessarily the best DPS in AoE last season, but they were brought because they bring Verse, and Verse is extremely powerful when
Yeah.
it comes to high end Mythic Plus.
Yeah,
So
and that's still the case today. I mean, like, it is not so powerful that you see one in every single key. Although I will say, like, the shaman buff is so good that
yeah,
you are basically seeing that buff in every single key. Like, if you do not run a Resto Shaman, if you are running Resto Druid instead, then you are probably running an Elemental Shaman. It helps that Elemental Shaman is just very, very good right now. So it's like an easy thing to include there, but um, man, that's a good buff.
yeah. Yeah. Well, so when we talk about things in the meta, I feel like we do this every season. And so like there's not really much to say. It's just cool to see the breakdown. It's interesting to see like we are I don't want to say for the first time, but the first time in a while seeing a meta in where like the fifth slot is kind of open ended,
Yeah.
and still not quite defined, which is really cool. We're in a two healer, two tank kind of race for the top right now, which is also pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see where this shakes out. I think that, barring any like major nerfs or buffs, we've probably got it solidified for the rest of the season. And it'll just really come down to what ends up performing the best throughout the entirety of the dungeons. And what has the best survivability while still being able to output some decent damage.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to hit the drum one more time, folks, every single one of you listening at home do not need to play a meta class. I mean, and like I understand the drive and the pull to do it. Again, this is the snowball effect where especially if you're a DPS class, you want to be able to get into keys. People are only inviting meta classes, so you feel this pressure to play a meta class, and then that just makes it worse because then more and more people are playing the meta class, which means it feels more and more mandatory, and then it just happens that way. I get it. I totally get it. But if you are starting your own groups, if you're running your own key, and you are inviting meta and only meta for tens, stop it. Please.
Yeah, I beg you, please stop it so that I can actually get invited to some keys on my other characters.
Yeah.
I would greatly appreciate that. Please, thank you.
You should link them the number one timed key in the world with a hunter in it and tell them that they should invite your hunter to things.
That's true. I don't understand what, like, it's so hard to get into things as a solo DPS, especially things like tens.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many people signing up.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. Like I don't even think there's a rhyme or a reason to who or what we pick when we put a 10 up. Like it's like, do you have Lust? Do you have OKIO? Or do you have a B-Res? Do you have OKIO? Or if we've got both of those covered, like what buff do we want? Like it's just random no matter what, because it's random based on whatever we have in the group already.
Yeah, and then we have literally infinity choices because there's like hundreds of DPS that sign up every time you throw one of these keys up. Yeah, so like it's just there's a tank bottleneck. This has been true for years. They're vastly more in a perfect world. There are 3 times more DPS classes than there are tanks, right? Like that's the perfect world. That's not the world we live in. It's much of a less favorable ratio than that. So the number of keys being run on any given moment are almost entirely dependent on the number of tanks willing to run keys. And so you get in the situation where, I feel bad for solo DPS people trying to pug. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, I mean, I have difficulty as a solo healer pugging to getting in groups sometimes, especially with like the rise of shaman and popularity. Like less people are inviting resto druids, but still vastly easier than a DPS. I can't imagine doing that, especially with the limited amount of time I have to play. I can't imagine doing that.
It's super frustrating, but it's something that's been a problem since the dawn of time. So it's not really.
I don't know how they solve it. Like I completely understand why people don't want to play tank. The pressure, the amount of responsibility and the amount of blame in any given key that gets put on the shoulders of the tank is a lot. And there are a lot of people that like that's the reason they play the game, is to put that responsibility and pressure on their shoulders, but clearly not enough. So how do you solve that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't see them doing anything about it anytime soon, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I think that's just kind of where we're at. Well, Scott, one more thing that I wanted to cover, and then I think that we might have two kind of minor things if you want to talk about them later. But I wanted to circle back and I wanted to kind of talk about, why does it feel like people are kind of blasting through this season? And you brought up a good point that we have the Rishi wrap and we have the boots, which empower the Rishi wrap by 30% more, and it's extremely powerful. And on top of that, the majority of classes tier sets are very, 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 very good this season. So, we're not even in Turbo Boost yet, but people are getting like week 2 AOTCs. They're getting, week 1 AOTCs, and they're not normally a week 1 or a week 2 AOTC raid team. But is the difficulty of the season, like, content lower this time around, or do you think that it is just the player power which we have been presented with this season that has kind of catered to this acceleration?
I think it's a little bit of both. I definitely think we are the most powerful we have been this season. Yeah, between the Reshi wrap, the incredible tier bonuses, and also just kind of end of expansion power creep that happens. Like your secondaries are very, very high by the time you're on the 3rd tier. I mean, like I'm having to cut haste out of my gear because I have so much haste. I have way too much haste, just because I have so much haste available to me. So like that kind of always happens at the end of the expansion. And then I think they were like, we are going to intentionally design these tier sets to be really fucking strong. The Reshi wrap, the boots compound upon that really and make that Reshi wrap even stronger. There's a lot of very powerful trinkets in this raid. So yeah, I mean, I think we are comparatively very, very powerful. And yeah, I think the dungeons and the raid is comparatively easier. I don't want to make it seem like I don't think like Mana Forge Omega on Heroic is not a challenging raid. I think it is. Like I haven't cleared it yet, right? I am not a week 2 AOTC person. Like we killed Salad Bar on Monday, and so I am 7 out of 8. I haven't even pulled Demencius on Heroic once. So like I'm not saying the raid is easy, don't get me wrong. But it does feel like you kind of very quickly outclass and outgear it. And I think that's part of that is just a natural consequence of the crest system, the upgrade system, that it has been true ever since they introduced that. But it does, I think, is kind of exponentially higher this season. Like, I mean, even the first 6 bosses in the raid. So my team struggled on Saladar for too long, frankly. But we fucking destroy bosses 1 through 6. I mean, not even like, oh, it's farm, it's easy. Like skipping phases. We don't even have that good a DPS, and it's not even turbo boost yet. And we don't even have like, we're running off only the 3% increase in damage and healing. Like by the end of this thing, there's going to be a 15% increase in damage and healing, and we are smoking these bosses. Like it ain't even close. And it's just like, whoa, like I'm just closing my eyes and imagining what a heroic run on like the final 2 weeks of the expansion, where everyone is like 725 with 15% added damage. Everyone's got boots. Everyone's got Biss trinkets. Just like a boss like Araz. Like how fast is that boss going to die? It's going to be so quick. And like Nexus King, like you're just going to skip phase 3 in Heroic like you do in normal. You're just going to totally skip it. Like the boss, you're going to kill the dragon before he even finishes siphoning life, and Saladar is going to be at like 10% or less, and it's just going to fall over immediately. And it's just like, wow. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think one of the things that they kind of experimented with in the first season of this expansion was like, what if we make things harder? Or maybe even what if we make things harder is not the correct term. What if we lock progression behind harder relative content? Like, it seems so long ago now, but do you remember like when you could get gilded crests first? Like all these things, there were all these kind of hard locks on your progression that actually required you to do harder stuff to get the best gear. And they rolled that back in season 2 and then continued to roll it back in season 3. And they also just changed the scaling of keys so keys scale better. Like, stuff's really easy right now.
Yeah. The keys especially feel very easy. Like I we have seen the majority of these dungeons before, so that's probably part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the scaling is essentially what it was in season 2, which was significantly easier than what it was in season 1. That's part of it. The Reshi rep is part of it. So like all of those things are just compounding on top of each other. And then on top of that, like, streets, which was a harder key, just got 3 minutes tacked onto it. Like some of the nerfs that have happened have been like very good and very pointed and honestly probably deserved. But in doing that, it feels like things have accelerated very quickly. And I'm not bringing this up because I feel like that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Let's be clear. We're not complaining about this fact, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's different. And so I noticed it and I wanted to talk about it because, like, when you think about it, like, why is that happening? And, everything that you just detailed out, Scott, everything that we said last week are things that are contributing to this. And you got to sit there and you got to wonder, like, if we are thinking that we are going to continue to have this like borrowed power system like a Reshi wrap or like the belt or a ring or whatever, and they do decide that they want to make it as powerful as a Reshi wrap again, then we are going to be fast again. And at some point I feel like there's a balance at which like they can't have us kind of progressing the same speed every season, or people are going to get tired of doing so and then they're just going to stop playing.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, it's like on a certain level, it's fun to feel powerful, right? Like it is fun, but that fun does wear off pretty quickly. And I think we do feel very powerful. Like I kind of rolled through my 12s last week, and the majority of them in pugs, and it was not that bad. Like it was really not that bad. And I felt like I remember saying this out loud when we were running a key. Like I feel very powerful. Like my ability to respond to damage and heal people, even when they fuck up, just feels very, very powerful in a 12 right now. And just knowing that I have still much more climbing to do as far as my total output, that's kind of wild. So it's a good feeling. I enjoy it. But yeah, I think it does eventually have a point of diminishing returns where like people like a certain level of challenge. They don't want things to be overly easy. And I mean, the cool thing about a scaling system like this in Mythic Plus, that's one of the reasons why I love Mythic Plus, is that even if keys 2 through 10 are ridiculously easy, everyone will eventually get to their point of no return, their maximum skill determined point. Everyone will get there, and that'll be different for everyone, but everyone will eventually get there. And if that's inflated by a little bit over time, if a person that could only do a 10 in season 1 can do a 15 in season 2, like that's kind of a natural progression. And then like the item squish, maybe we eventually over time have to do similar key squishes that they did at the end of Dragonflight. It ultimately doesn't matter. Like they're numbers representing accomplishments. It doesn't ultimately matter what those numbers are.
So let's talk about the key squish a little bit, though, because you actually made a comment about this the other day to myself and one of our other friends. Like, the reason that they did this key squish is because they wanted key levels 2 through 10 to feel like they meant something, because we were getting into the realm of people doing like 15s, and then like 15s were supposed to be like the equivalent of like a 5 is now or was in season 1. But like 15s was also the cutoff for getting was KSM? Was that 15s?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that makes sense, right? Because like KSM now is right around the 5 to 7 range.
Mm-hmm.
And so, uh, that being said, though, the difficulty of a 15 previously, before they squished everything, and a 5 now, I would say a 5 now is significantly easier than a 15 was at that point. And I would even argue that we're getting back to this point of like the low key levels don't matter. Like challenge doesn't really start to pick up until you get to like 10, 11, 12, and then at 12 or 10 and onward or whatever, like scaling's increasing, right? So things will ultimately get harder faster. And so I don't think we're going to be seeing people doing 30s anytime soon. But I think as the seasons go on and people do get stronger and understand the system more, it's going to be more of the same, like you said, and we might need another key squish. But like, should the key squish be something like a stat squish where we think of it like, okay, things are just getting easier because numbers are getting inflated. And so we want to bring the numbers back to what are like what we consider reasonable levels? Or should we be thinking about it like Blizzard said they were thinking about it in this last key squish, in which they want lower content to feel meaningful to people who are doing it instead of feeling like it's just so easy that it might as well not exist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the ultimate goal for the health of the game is that you have representation at all available levels of difficulty, right? Like that from LFR to Mythic, from heroic dungeons to 20s, that there is a healthy ecosystem in which there is a group of people that like-minded people wanting to experience and play at all those levels. Last week, and by the way, I like, this is not just anecdotal stuff we're telling here. Like the data is showing that there is not a healthy ecosystem of people playing Mythic Plus from like the 2 to 9 range. Last week, 70% of all keys done were 10 and above.
Yep.
70%. And this is what, week 4?
Yeah.
I think. That's
something like that.
That's crazy. I mean, it's I mean, I think that's always going to happen, right? Like that is the point of gear. That is the point of power increase over time, that as everyone collectively gets stronger through the season, they are collectively pushing up to different key levels. But it feels like that's happened really fast. I mean, if it's 70% this week, then it's probably going to be higher next week. And how many weeks until that number is 90%, is 95%, is 100%? It'll never be 100%. But like, as we get closer and closer to 100%, let's say you come back to the game right now. It's like, I want to run a 2. There's nobody fucking running 2. It's like,
yeah.
I think that is a very real danger, and the only real danger of the choice to kind of make the lower key levels easy is you make them basically they don't matter anymore. Like we did a 2 last night, right? You had a 2 on your warrior. You didn't think you could do a 10 on your warrior, but everyone in our group had either 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s, or your 2. So we ran the 2. So I hopped on my shaman. I haven't played all season. Shit gear. We went into this 2, and it was nothing. It was nothing. Like I can tell you, as a healer, there was very little I had to do. And I don't even have 4-piece on the shaman yet to make it like super easy with 3 ancestors just chucking out heals all the time. Like it's just a very, very easy key. And I think 10s don't feel that bad either. 12s, I mean, and again, this is all relative, yada, yada, yada. Like some people struggle at different levels than others, but like, I don't know. I mean, for the health of the game, what is the solve for that? And I don't know if it's just a key squish, because it just seems like if you're going to do a squish, but then also make the scaling so much more lenient to where everyone wants to do 10s anyway. Like the only way to kind of force this healthy ecosystem is you make breakpoints. I mean, you do essentially what they did in season 1, where you make these very challenging breakpoints that basically hold people back from that breakpoint until they reach a certain level of skill or gear or a combination of the two. And that's what they did, and nobody liked it. And so they
Yeah.
said, okay, we're not doing that anymore. Um, and so, like, is there a way you can kind of help this ecosystem along without something like that? I don't know the solution. I don't think they do either. I don't think they know.
hmm I definitely don't think that there's anything that they can do, at least with the way that the system is currently. Like, we're talking about something that probably needs to go back to the drawing board when we talk about a Mythic Plus overhaul. Like, that is something that needs to be considered if they ever consider a Mythic Plus overhaul. Because I think with the current iteration of it, you do a key squish, you're still going to wind up in this spot eventually. You make things harder, people won't play. Like, it's just something that needs to be taken back to the drawing board. And I mean, you and I have been saying like Mythic Plus needs to be reworked and overhauled just for freshness. I mean, at the very least, um, like I'm scared to say that, right? Because it's a system I like, and I don't want them to make it a system I do not like. But this system has been this way since Legion. There has been very, very minor, like overwhelming changes to the system.
Yeah.
And so like we're getting to a point in which like it really does need to happen. And I, despite my better judgment of like stick with the status quo because it's something I like, I know that for the health of the game, it would be in their best interest to take a look at Mythic Plus and think about a way in which they could potentially overhaul the system.
Yeah. So one exciting thing that's happening, and it will already have happened by the time people are listening to this, but on the 18th of September, the game Fellowship is going into open beta. This is basically, I think we've talked about it on the podcast a couple times before. This is basically a company that has taken the Mythic Plus system, carved it out of WoW, and made it its own game. And they made a lot of changes over the course of it. I haven't even played it in a while, so I don't even know the full scope of the changes they made since we were in some of those test weekends and things like that. So like we have this pretty big game coming out soon that is going to attempt to build a system like this from the ground up that is unattached to all the other systems that WoW is, that make them kind of limit the decisions that they can make. And so I'm very interested in seeing how Fellowship handles progression and growth, and it handles all these problems that we're talking about in World of Warcraft that will probably rear their head in that game as well. I'm really interested to see how they handle those, and if there's lessons to be learned here that can be then taken back to WoW. I think maybe next week I'm hoping to play some Fellowship over the course of this week and next week. So maybe next week when we meet, we can at least have a little mini segment where we talk about our experience with the open beta of that game and how that game is doing. Because I think it's very much in our wheelhouse and our interest to see, not only just to see if there's a new fun game we can play, but how that fun game can influence and perhaps improve the systems in WoW we like so much. So
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful that
I would say
I think the future of Mythic Plus is bright. I do. I continue to love this game mode. I just like even doing that too. Like it was fun. It was easy, but it was fun because I just like doing keys. I just think it's fun to do keys at any level, at all levels of difficulty, all levels of challenge. I just think it's fun. So, I'm very hopeful for the future of this game mode.
Yeah, knowing what is good from a different game and seeing how that can be brought to World of Warcraft is how we ended up with the player housing system that World of Warcraft fans are so looking forward to right now.
Great point.
Like, that was quite literally something that they tried with garrisons in their own sense and didn't really nail. And then they looked at Final Fantasy and they looked at other games and they saw like hero housing systems people really like, and they brought that onto World of Warcraft's like planning board, and then they blizzardified it, like they made changes on top of that, and people are excited for it now. So I think that competition, obviously in open markets, competition breeds success, whatever shit that always gets spewed around. It's so true when it comes to games. The problem is the game has to be successful for a multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar company to even look at. So if, Fellowship comes out and it's got a small niche community of people who enjoy it, but it isn't booming, Blizzard's not even going to care. They're not even going to look at the things that they do.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know how that game's going to ultimately end up being. I had my things I liked about it and my complaints with it. I think the marketing department of that game knows exactly what they're doing, and they're getting big WoW Mythic Plus content creators involved in everything. Like, the open beta starts tomorrow for you and me, but there were content creators playing a version of the game today on stream to build hype for the beta. They just seem to know what their target audience is and how to get a hold of that target audience. So will it ultimately be like a financially successful, huge game? That remains to be seen. I think they're setting themselves up for success in that regard. I think the thing that's going to either sink or elevate the game is going to ultimately be like the feel. How does it feel to play? And I had some complaints on that in some of the earlier ones, that it was a little too floaty, a little less like. The problem is nothing can feel as responsive as World of Warcraft can feel. Like, that's just like this game is so well designed, from that perspective at least, and so it's very hard to emulate that. But what's great about Fellowship is you can boot that shit up. You don't have to do anything to your UI. You can just fucking go, just send it. It's
and
great.
It's free.
Yeah, it is free. Yep. Yeah. So more on that suit later.
I was gonna say we'll cover that next week, because I do want to see, like, maybe we come with our list of like things that we like from Fellowship and would like to see in WoW, and how that could be a system in WoW versus things that Fellowship does differently that we dislike.
Sure. Yeah.
Next week.
Sounds good.
I don't know. I don't have anything else for today. Like I said, it was a little bit more off the cuff today. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, I think we can save them. I think we're going to be in a little bit of a content drought for the next few weeks. So there's a couple things I could talk about, but I can also very easily save them for future episodes. So let's just do that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Well, as always, guys, we have we've got a lot going on with the season, and we've got a lot going on with Turbo Boost coming up. So I do have questions, and the main one being like how do you feel like after hearing the response on Yoda's stream for Turbo Boost and what people are feeling, and that kind of echoing what Scott and I were feeling, versus Scott hearing on another podcast that shut up and just play the game because you like playing the game. Like, I want to know how you guys are feeling and what you're thinking about this Turbo Boost, since we've known about it from the get-go. So really that's the main question that I have for this week.
Yeah.
And if you have any thoughts around it that are specific, like why you feel like they should keep doing this or shouldn't keep doing this, I'd love to hear those as well. So,
yeah.
But as always, guys, you can contact us over at yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com. YouTube is at yellingintothevoidwow, and Twitter and Blue Sky are both at intothevoidwow.
And please make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. As Tevin said, we are on YouTube, so you can subscribe there. But you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on all of those other wonderful podcast applications out there. We're on all of them, every single one. I promise you.
Every one. And make sure you subscribe on all of them.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about podcasting is, like, you can't just take the same recording and put them on multiple ones. So we have to record this whole episode multiple times just to release it in multiple places. It's a nightmare. We've been going for 17 hours already, and we're exhausted. Yeah. If only there was a way to copy
actually
paste.
Just take every Wednesday off, and we just record all day. That's all we do. So
please appreciate this. We're working real hard over here.
But all right, guys. Also, please consider liking and subscribing and commenting on the YouTube video, the Spotify, either video podcast or the audio version. Either way, they both come to the same spot. But all of that helps us get more exposure, introduces us to newer people, and allows us to continue what we do here. But guys, until next week, when we have a little bit of fellowship news, we'll just be over here yelling into the void.